probably in one of the better games in college football this season, Kansas and Oklahoma squared off in Lawrence. Joe, I could not take my eyes off of this one. I know that there were other great games that were on. This game got delayed in the first half. Both teams come back, and it was quite honestly haymaker city, man. And both teams were throwing haymakers. Dylan Gabriel did not have a good day. 14 of 19, 171, and an interception. The weather really did permit him for getting things going in the air, but they did get some things going on the ground. But I say it every week, Joe, as if it's like my name or something. Oklahoma not being able to convert on third down and fourth down late into that game lost them. They were 2 for 10 on third downs. They were getting off the field way too easily. Kansas was flying around the football. They controlled the line of scrimmage on both lines of scrimmage late into that game and into the second half. I can't believe I'm going to come out here and say this, but Kansas pushed around Oklahoma, something that I never thought that I was going to come in here and say. But the one key thing to me, the turnover late by Oklahoma, Kansas just felt like as the game kept going on and Oklahoma wasn't able to separate, Kansas wanted it more. They were flying around, and I got to admit, Joe, we talk about Lance Leipold, their head coach, a lot. I am a massive fan of Coach Leipold and what they're doing in Kansas. I hate to say this, but we talked about this during the last week. I'm not shocked that it happened. I am shocked, however, Oklahoma got pushed around up front.
Well, one of the things we talked about in the preview is that Kansas has a lot of pieces on that roster that aren't getting national attention. Multiple offensive linemen, 2 of their guards, very good players. Devin Nealman is going to be a big name for this upcoming draft. I'm a really big fan of his. The things we saw, the contact balance, all that stuff played really well for Kansas. Dude, I hate to admit this, Kansas fans, this is an exciting win, but this might be what pushes him out the door. I really think that someone is going to come along with a blank check and try to coerce him into coming there. There has been speculation maybe he ends up at Michigan State. If I am him, I would not want to go there with the current state of that program. And the stigma around being around that Michigan State program just in general. But if something happens, the one I want to monitor the most is whatever happens at Michigan with Jim Harbaugh. If he goes to the NFL, as some people are speculating, does Lance Leipold end up at Michigan? I think there's a possibility. You think so?
No, I don't think it.
He's a Midwestern guy. He came from Wisconsin.
But they want Michigan men.
That is true.
Like their whole stigma is that they want somebody led by Michigan.
Yeah, but was Brady Hoke and Rich Rod, were they Michigan men?
Brady Hoke didn't Brady Hoke play there?
Brady Hoke might have. I don't know about Rich Rod.
Yeah, though. Rich Rod didn't. Bring back Rich Rod. Look, I do think that Oklahoma offensive line did a lot of good things. The passing game couldn't get going late. They ran for over 260 yards. But, Joe, I can't Brent Venables led defense. Now, a buddy of mine sent me a text during that game and said, this is what happens when Brent Venables can't steal signs, okay, is that his defense gets run all over. 225 yards on the ground for Kansas. Now, look, Bean did not have a great game, okay? If you just look at it through the stats, he was 15 of 32, 218, and 2 interceptions. That Kansas got the turnover and then ran a zone read, which he scored on. Absolutely massive. You get a turnover on one play. The very next one, you're going, I think it was around 40-something yards into the end zone, and you take the lead. He was able to extend plays with his legs. Look, they're just a very well-coached, balanced football team. If they got Jalen Daniels back, I don't know what this team could do, but they're good enough. They're good defensively. They're good on both lines of scrimmage. And the Neal kid, they said, was from Lawrence, Kansas. And that's what you got to do when you turn programs around. Yeah. When you can recruit some of the guys that can actually play from you in-state. Joe, that kid normally, I would assume, I'm not very privy on the Kansas State recruiting prowess, but 9 times out of 10, it feels like that kid goes to Kansas State, right? Lance Leipold.
Or elsewhere in the Big 12. A lot of those guys. Big 12,
right.
Yeah.
Oklahoma State, wherever it may have been, they pushed him around. I want to go back to some of these play calls late into these games too, Joe, because Oklahoma Jeff Lebby is a very, very good offensive coordinator. Very good offensive coordinator. But them being 2 for 10 on third down is a little alarming. Now, my take about Oklahoma this week was wrong. I thought that they had struggles running the football with their backs. But regardless, Walker had 23 carries, 146 yards, and a touchdown. I thought that could be the way when we talked about upsets this week that Kansas did it. It was Gabriel being a little – I know he's 14 of 19, but he missed a lot of things to be desired. He didn't pull the trigger. He would take off and run a lot of times when maybe he should have. Maybe it was the atmosphere. Maybe it was the wet ball. I don't know what it is, but he did not play the game that I thought that he can go in there and play.
This is going to sound really stupid, but just bear with me, and I'm probably going to get clowned for making this comment. Dylan Gabriel, it felt like, as you just mentioned there, the weather conditions for some reason completely disrupted his rhythm. So it was raining for a good, decent portion of this game, not the entirety of it. But I think that poor early start that he had, I forget, he was like 2 for 10 or something at one point. It was really bad.
Really bad.
That stuff completely destroyed his day. He is somebody who, as we've seen in his career, and I thought that he had grown past it, why I was so in on him in this Oklahoma team. Yeah, he's very streaky. He gets down and he stays down. He really does not get out of it. He didn't make any big plays to reinvigorate this Oklahoma team. And this is the stupid part, the stupid comment. He's a smaller quarterback. I don't know how big his hands are, but he's probably got little hands, and that probably impact him being able to throw the ball.
Okay, calm down, Donald Trump. All right.
No, seriously, this is why wait. This is why us and people in the NFL draft community talk about this, because quarterbacks with small hands have a tough time gripping footballs when
Joe
it's wet,
when
it's
small
snowing.
hands, and he just kicked up on the 49ers' ass.
They're below the general threshold, but they're not particularly small. See, I knew you were going to laugh at me for this, but this is real analysis, Blake. This is the real analysis.
Okay. But you know what? It didn't stop Bean from having a fantastic fourth quarter. And
he's bigger than him. Maybe he's got big hands.
Maybe speaking of Pate State, well, he's a track star too. He's a bigger kid.
Yeah.
Speaking of Josh, he was in here earlier. I know he talks about backup quarterbacks all the time and how he likes it. And I'm always like, hey, man, I got to give it to him. Joe, we did not give him a lot of credit. The 2 picks were horrible, okay? They were not good. But, man, when you needed him, he was so clutch in clutch time. He was so good in clutch time. Kansas is 6-2. Kansas is 6-2, which is nuts.
But they have bad losses, though.
Oh, okay. Fair,
there's nothing really to really support with them. Yeah, they'll probably finish in the top 20.
But you see, look, when I say that, you characterize it as me saying, can they make a run at anything? Who knows? Maybe they could. Yeah. What I'm just saying is they're 6-2. They get some chaos in the Big 12. Oklahoma, didn't Oklahoma go to Oklahoma State later in the year?
They might be next week. Wait.
Okay. Hey, man. Crazy things happen when the mullet gets washed. Okay.
It is next week.
So what if you have another crazy week where Oklahoma, I don't want to say comes out flat or whatever it may be, but the mullet gets formed? Mike Gundy, I hear, uses Tresemme, ooh la la, and all of a sudden in Oklahoma State, you got something really weird happening.
Well, we saw. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
One last point. Texas, even though I gave Malik Murphy some, what's the word I'm looking for here, Joe? Flowers. Okay. They're beatable right now. They are hot. That defense stepped up because they are beatable. So yes. I'm just throwing it out there. They're not statistically out of this thing now.
They're not. And to just add into that Oklahoma State point you're bringing up, we saw an explosive rushing attack take advantage of Oklahoma. Yep. What do we think Ollie Gordon's going to do, who's got 3 straight 200-yard all-purpose games in a row? Speaking of a guy who belongs in the Heisman conversation, by the way, Ollie Gordon deserves to be in there. But this victory for Kansas and their record and how things can shape out for the Big 12 championship game, Blake, that signals for me that we will not have a Big 12 team sniffing the playoff. I really do not think that we are going to have somebody in the playoff. I think that we are starting to see now this conference more than any, and I thought it was the Pac-12 last week, and I'm flipping here. I think that the Big 12 is going to eat itself up over the next couple of weeks and knock itself out of getting into the college football playoff. Because what are we going to do? Are we going to stick Texas in there? If Alabama loses to LSU, this is where things get really complicated.
Well, see, this is what – so, Joe, you remember earlier in this before the year even started, maybe I think it was like week 2. I said, Joe, this feels like a spooky year. This feels like a 2-loss team getting into the playoff type stuff. Now, you need a lot of chaos to happen. Okay, you still would need Washington to lose. You'd still need not USC. You would still need maybe Oregon to lose another game and not win out in the pack. You're going to need Oklahoma and Texas to lose again. Florida State continues to absolutely dominate human beings. All right, they are as impressive. But who knows how this could go down? But things are starting to shape up in every conference. You're coming down to Michigan, and I know we're off the beaten path on this game, but you're coming down to Michigan and Ohio State squaring off for the Big Ten. You got pretty much, man, Florida State running the entire ACC. We're going to find out what's going to happen in the SEC this week. Things are shaping out really quickly, and who knows what happens if some chaos were to go down. One last thing for me on this game. I thought Brent Venables looked shook when he went down late, okay? I think it was the first time that he was kind of like, I'd saw him all year, like maybe his team was a little timid and he was a little timid. That turnover that they had, man, oh, man, when you have turnovers, you're going to kill yourself. So